All right, guys, today we got a real special guest, somebody that's been in this game for a really long time, doing the content that I do, doing the type of content that a lot of people that you see on YouTube do. He was one of the first to really do this type of content. The one, the only Mikey T, the movie star, man. Yo, so how
Yo,
you
what
doing today,
is good?
bro?
What is good, man? I appreciate that introduction, man. I'm good, man. I'm just working on content as usual. You know what I mean? Live videos, new interviews, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on your platform today, Panda.
Man, I appreciate you reaching out, bro. I want to help the people understand who you are more and your background. So, how did you come up with the name Mikey T, the movie star?
So the name Mikey T, the movie star, I guess it goes back to like the middle school days into the high school days when everybody was, creating like names for themselves for their social media platforms back in the day and shit. You know what I mean? So I had this.
We talking like MySpace?
I'm talking.
Oh,
I'm talking like all the way back to MySpace days. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I remember talking with Paris Hilton on MySpace, French Montana on MySpace, and it could all possibly be based off the fact that my name was Mikey T, the movie star. So when people would see that name kind of pop up, they would put a little bit of respect on that name. You know what I mean? They're like, Mikey T, the movie star. What's this guy do? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's kind of where the name found its first platform. But where the name came from altogether is the fact that my brother was a director. So I kind of took that, that order. And I was like, he's the director, I'm the movie star. So it kind of came naturally to me the way I got the name.
That's smart marketing too. That's crazy that people caught on to that. Your brother, any a big name that we know?
Jeremiah Kipp, he had a movie that just premiered on Shutter this year called Slapface. So, he's building his name in the industry.
That's dope, man. Where did you grow up, and like what kind of family did you come from?
Well, I grew up in Connecticut. My whole life, I grew up in Connecticut. My parents were separated, but not separated. Like my dad lived at the other end of the state, and my mom lived where I grew up in a place called Norwich, Connecticut. So, so yeah, I was pretty much living with my mom, but due to the fact that I was like getting in fights with my brothers, I couldn't really live at my mom's no more. So I had to go move in with my dad because me and my brother, we had to share a room and we were just getting so many fights. I'd do messed up shit to him, like pour soda in his Nintendo game or some shit like that to just start a massive fight, and we would be punching each other throughout the whole house and, just destroying the crib. And my mom just couldn't take it. So she had to get me up out of the house. You know what I mean? But then I would keep going back and forth because I would get in trouble at the schools where my dad was living. So I would go back and forth to my mom's and shit. And I would always be like, I always missed my friends, going down there and hanging out with my friends. So that would be something that put me back as well. So that's kind of the life that I lived. My brother who I was speaking on, Jeremiah Kipp, he's about 13, 14 years older than me. So,
Oh, damn.
yeah, so he actually had graduated and he was in school in New York while my mom had, we had three other kids. She had three other kids from 86 to 93. So I had two other brothers, one older, one younger. And so we were growing up while he was out there, doing his thing, NYU, getting involved in movies and shit.
So for those people that are not familiar with Connecticut, like what in the areas that you grew up, was it like the hood? Was it like really urban or, more like straight edge, like hardworking white collar people?
Where I grew up was called low income housing. I guess it would be called row housing. You know what I mean? Some people referred to it as project housing. And, it was pretty natural. You know what I mean? I lived like 100 feet from the school. So it's not like we even had to rely on buses coming to pick us up. You'd literally just have to wake up in the morning and walk to school. You know what I mean? Or you just have to wake up and walk to the grocery store or walk to the Chinese buffet. You know what I'm saying? Anything like that. In everyday life was pretty simple. I mean, we had a basketball court. You know what I mean? Even though I wasn't really balling like that, but I would go out and interact with the other kids and shit like that back in the day. So That's kind of how I grew up in the sense out there. You know, the elementary school was right there, and then by the time I got to middle school, my grandparents took me up out of there though, because it was kind of looked at. It was low income housing. There was a lot of one of my best friends had got deported back to Haiti back in the day. It was kind of a dead end. So my grandparents came and just moved the whole family out to one half of the family to Rhode Island, which is the bordering state of Connecticut. And then I stayed with my dad, I told you at the beginning, he actually was living at the end of Connecticut. So I stayed in Connecticut. Maybe not the best decision I ever made, you know what I mean? Because Connecticut is kind of a dead end state. You know what I mean? I've done a few things out here, but the best part of being from Connecticut is the fact that we're right near New York. You're right near Massachusetts. You know what I mean? Jersey's a drive away, Philly's a drive away. You know what I mean? It's nothing to get out, to Virginia.
So would you say that it was kind of more of like a small town vibe where you were growing up?
Yeah, it was a small town vibe. You know what I mean? Like I was saying, you would walk to the grocery store, or you'd walk to get something to eat, or you'd go up past the grocery store and go to Strawberries and get some CDs or tapes. I was getting tapes back then and shit, you know what I mean? But you'd go there and you get your music, you know what I mean? It was really small. You go get some Wendy's, you know what I mean? And you talk with your friend, your friend would be like, Socrates would always be asking me like, "So Mikey T, do you rap?" And I'm like 11 years old at the time. You know what I mean? I'm like 11 years old out there walking to go get a junior bacon cheeseburger and go listen to some music at Strawberries. You know what I'm saying? It just conversations like that. Who's your favorite rapper? You know what I'm saying? At that point in time, you could never visualize getting out of Connecticut. You know what I mean? You could never visualize actually making yourself a part of the music industry. You know what I mean? Nobody could see that in our future back then.
And so, like, were you at that time in the streets, or you just like were someone that really loved hip hop and like saw a future in hip hop in some way?
Well, the thing was, like I said, I was like 11 years old. You know what I mean? I was like 10, 11 years old hearing my first rap albums. Um, uh, I wouldn't say so much in the street, but there would be a lot of like when you're in an elementary school and you're just kind of acting more like you're in high school. Like we would be fighting outside of schools. I remember getting jumped when I was in the third grade. You know what I'm saying? Shit like that. But as far as in the streets, you know what I mean? I wasn't even really introduced to marijuana and stuff like that until I was like 13, 14 years old. You know what I mean? So I wasn't out there. I mean, back in the day, I remember, from one apartment to another, somebody's like, here, run this, what you would think is a cigarette up to apartment 37B. You know what I mean? But you just wouldn't even know any better. You would do dumbass shit like one of your friend would find a bunch of bullets and then you would walk around to the different houses, you know what I mean? And like you would just have little crazy little things like, oh, these kids are running around selling bullets, and then they'd call the police. You know what I mean? Then the police show up to the houses and shit like that. I wasn't really in the streets back then like that because I was just so young. Now, when I moved out of there, that's when I was in like high school and shit like that. And shit started to change. I remember back in the day at that point, like the kids looked at me as somebody different. They're like, yo, he came from somewhere else that we don't really understand. We look down on the people that come from Norwich and come and move up into Stonington. It's kind of a more middle class area, as you were saying. You know what I mean? And I remember being in the lunchroom taking orders. Yo, you want an eighth? Boom, 40. Quarter, 80. Boom. Lined up literally at my lunch table taking orders like that. But then the weed price dropped drastically. I remember the kid came up to me one day. He's like, "So you got that quarter?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's good?" He's like, "For 40, right?" I'm like, "Oh shit, the game done fucked up, man. The game done fucked up." So I was like, it wasn't worth it.